There has never been mobile service in those mountains, but someone sent a message to my phone. No signal at all. That was exactly why I rented the place. Full digital silence. The nearest tower was 18 miles away. I am a software engineer. I work with data 16 hours a day, and by late August, my head felt like a browser with 200 tabs open. I needed real quiet. I got it, and I got something else. My name is Alex. I am 34. I went alone for 6 days to a cabin in the Idaho mountains. I booked through a small local agency site, not one of the major platforms. The owner, Dan, sent me a door code and a 2-page instruction sheet. The cabin had belonged to his family for decades. I arrived Friday evening. 1 room, small kitchen, porch facing the valley. No TV, no router, on purpose. I put my phone in a desk drawer as a symbolic gesture and opened a book. The first 2 days were exactly what I came for. I read, I walked, I cooked normal meals, I slept 9 hours. My brain started slowing down in the good way, like a machine finally taken off load. On Sunday night, I woke up to my phone vibrating. That alone was strange because I was sure I had put it on silent. I took it from the nightstand and looked at the screen. A message. No number, no name, just a blank sender field. You drank coffee at 7:14 this morning. I stared at it for 10 seconds. Then I checked the time. 2 a.m. exactly. I started giving myself explanations. Software bug, delayed delivery, wrong recipient. I deleted it and went back to bed. The next night, 2 a.m., the phone vibrated again. You went to the creek around 4 p.m., sat on the bend rock for a long time. I had sat on that exact rock for about an hour. I did not sleep until morning. The next day, I tried to reason through it. No signal means no incoming messages. I checked the bars. 0. I checked settings. Normal. I searched the cabin for hidden networking gear, hotspot hardware, anything. Nothing. Shelves, wood walls, old books, cracked bathroom mirror. Right before that third message, there was one more detail I did not tell anyone at first because it felt too small. That morning, I found the lower door lock not fully latched. The door was closed, but the lock sat between positions. I remembered locking both bolts the night before. That was part of my routine. During the day, I started keeping a ridiculous log, the way I do at work. Time I left, route I took, items I carried, time I returned. I took a photo of the entry shelf before hiking out. When I came back, one boot had been turned slightly toward the wall. Maybe I had left it that way. That is what I told myself. I climbed the slope behind the cabin to where you can see the dirt road. No cars, no people, just trees and wind. When I got back, there was a wet mug in the sink that I did not remember using before the walk. Again, I blamed my own attention. I almost convinced myself the messages were a phone glitch when the next night came. 2 o'clock. Vibration. Do not go out on the porch. I was reading that line when a floorboard creaked on the porch behind the door. Once. Slow. Like someone shifting weight. I did not move. I barely breathed. I counted seconds. The silence stretched long enough that I began telling myself it was wind or wood movement. Then it happened again. A different board. Closer to the door. Someone was standing on my porch. Between me and that person were a thin door panel and a glass insert. I dialed 911. 0 bars. Of course. Then I did something I am not proud of. I opened notes and typed one line to myself. If you make it to morning, leave now. I stayed still for about 40 minutes, No more creaks. At dawn, I finally opened the door. The porch was empty. My backpack was leaning against the railing. The same backpack I had carried to the creek. I had left it inside. I was sure. The zipper was positioned differently from how I leave it. Inside, nothing was stolen, but my field notebook was in the front pocket instead of the main compartment. Somebody had handled my things and put them back. I left that morning. As soon as I got signal on the road, I called Dan and told him everything. He was quiet for a few seconds, then asked if I had posted my route online before the trip. I said no. He told me there had been a similar incident a year earlier. Police found a small improvised camp half a mile from the cabin. Equipment included a directional antenna and a laptop configured to imitate a local cell node, enough to present a phantom signal to devices within a few hundred meters. Someone was creating signal on purpose for people who came there because there was supposed to be none. The next day, I got a call from a deputy. He asked me to provide a formal statement. In the station, they printed my message log. No sender number, only an internal network identifier. The deputy said my phone would treat the fake node as legitimate. I asked whether they found the person. He said the camp looked fresh, but empty. Battery packs, cables, food wrappers, a makeshift mast, and a sightline through the trees that covered the path to the cabin and part of the porch. I asked why someone would send, "Do not go out on the porch." He said he could not discuss theories, then added one sentence I still remember. Sometimes people who watch are not watching only you. Dan shut down rentals after my call, permanently. What I still cannot process is the precision. Those messages described my actions well enough that direct observation was required. For 3 days, someone followed me to the creek on the trail around the cabin and took notes. Methodical, never close enough to be seen. And the last message, "Do not go out on the porch," was not a threat. It was a warning, which means there was someone else out there. In the house we bought, there was someone in the crawlspace. I remember the inspector's words exactly because I repeated them for months, like a mantra, trying to convince myself this was just a professional miss. He had opened the hatch. I was standing beside him. He shined a flashlight down there for 3 minutes and said, "Looks clear. No signs of activity. Nothing to worry about." Someone had lived there for at least 2 years. We bought the house in September. Me, my wife Karen, and our 2 kids, Matt, who was 9 then, and Lily, who was 7. Mountain area in West Virginia, 40 minutes from town. Old, but solid. 1.5 acres, a creek at the property line, spruce trees high enough to block most of the sky on cloudy days. We moved in October. The first weeks were normal move chaos. Boxes, school forms, new commute. Kids adapted quickly. Matt found a trail to the creek. Lily declared the closet under the stairs her secret office. Karen stripped old wallpaper in the living room. I fixed one thing after another. The first odd thing, and I use that word carefully, odd, not scary, happened in November. Karen noticed food disappearing slightly faster than it should. Peanut butter jar, half a sleeve of crackers, a few apples. We blamed Matt. He took the move harder than he showed and sometimes snacked late. I talked to him. He denied it. I did not really believe him. He was 9. In December, Lily said she heard someone walking under the floor at night. The first time she said it, she was calm, almost curious. By the third time, she asked if people under houses can hear us when we whisper. Karen and I looked at each other and changed the subject. I told Lily old houses carry sound in strange ways, and she nodded. But that week, she started sleeping with the hallway light on. We gave her a simple explanation. Old pipes, metal expansion in cold weather, house noises. She accepted it. I accepted it too. Then I started hearing it myself. Not pipes. Pipes were rhythmic and predictable. This was different. Slow, irregular. Like someone transferring weight very carefully to avoid noise. After that, I kept waking around 3 a.m., not to sound, but to a feeling of being observed. I would lie still and listen. Fridge clicks, heating ticks, wind in trees. Under all of it, something faint from below. One morning, I found a kitchen chair pulled out by about the width of a hand. I pushed it back and blamed the kids. Later, Karen asked why I had walked barefoot to the kitchen in the night. I had not. There were damp footprints on the tile, not my size. In January, I opened the crawlspace myself. The hatch was in the pantry under an old rug. I had assumed the rug was just leftover from previous owners. I moved it, lifted the hatch, went down with a flashlight. The first part looked standard. Dirt floor, pipes, webbing, damp smell. Then the smell changed. Less earth, more warm, and lived in. I went deeper. Past a support beam, the space widened. Someone had removed soil to make a low niche around 3 feet high. On the ground was a folded blanket, neat, almost military. Next to it, a plastic storage bin with canned food, a pack of our crackers, and 3 AA batteries. There was a small shelf built from rough boards. Items were arranged on it carefully. Pencil stub, empty metal coffee tin used as a cup, and a drawing. A child's drawing taped to wood. A table, 4 figures around it. 2 adults, 1 boy, 1 girl. Our family. Detailed enough to remove chance. The small figure had yellow hair like Lily. And 1 more figure, outside the window, looking in. I turned the paper over. On the back were shaky block letters, like handwriting practice. When they go to sleep, no signature, no date, just that line. I do not remember climbing out. I remember calling 911 from the pantry floor, on my knees over the hatch. My voice was calm when I gave the address. Not my voice. The voice of someone who understands panic is a luxury. Police arrived quickly. They found evidence of long-term habitation, stored water, improvised ventilation tube fed through a foundation opening, a narrow crawl tunnel leading outside under the back porch, camouflaged from the exterior to look like part of the foundation. One officer asked me not to enter the kids' rooms until they finished processing. I asked why. He showed me a photo from below the floor under Lily's room. A beam had tally marks scratched into it in groups of 5, many groups. Under Matt's room, they found 1 thin board with a slit that carried voices from above with little distortion. I stood in the hallway listening to that explanation and realized how many family conversations had been heard from below. They never found the person. Investigation suggested entry before our move, while the house sat empty between closing and occupancy. He watched us through floor gaps. He knew our routine. He knew our names. Police found another sheet with all 4 names written neatly, first letter capitalized. Months later, insurance returned a box of recovered belongings. Among clothes and toys was a notebook page I had never seen. Same careful handwriting. Lily sings before sleep. That line hit me harder than the drawing because it was true. I later checked old phone videos from that winter. In one clip, Lily is singing in her room while I stand in the doorway, smiling like nothing is wrong. At second 7, there is a faint knock from below the floor. I had never noticed it before. Once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. We never went back to that house. Lily still dislikes sitting over open space. She always keeps her back to a wall. She is 14 now and does not know why she does that. I am not going to explain it to her. Someone watched me through my own trail cameras. That is the part I cannot shake. I am an ornithologist. Been doing this since I was 12, since my grandfather put binoculars in my hands at a Vermont field edge and said, "Stay quiet and wait." In 30 years, I learned how to observe without being noticed, blend into landscape, disappear, wait. I did not know someone else had learned the same discipline, with me as the subject. Early May, end of migration season. I rented a research cabin in the Appalachian foothills in western North Carolina, one of those Forest Service properties available through a conservation program. 2 rooms, no Wi-Fi, no service. Exactly what I needed. I was documenting songbird activity along a creek for a paper I was finishing. 5 days. Just me, spotting scope, 4 trail cameras, and about 5 kilograms of field gear. I arrived Tuesday afternoon, unloaded, and set up quickly the way people do after hundreds of field trips. Cameras went on trees about 40 meters apart along the creek. Low mount, water facing, motion trigger. Standard ground species pattern. I have a personal rule from years in the field. Never point cameras toward where people sleep. Privacy and discipline. I broke that rule slightly this trip because I saw fresh raccoon tracks near the cabin and wanted route confirmation. The first 2 days were excellent. Myrtle warblers in unusually high numbers. A pair of Louisiana water thrushes working the bank. I kept my field log, woke at 5, slept at 10. Everything worked as planned. On day 3, I started downloading camera data. First 3 cards were predictable. Birds, raccoon, 1 deer pass. Camera 4 was closest to the cabin, around 20 meters from the porch. I inserted the card, opened the folder, and saw the file count. 47 night clips. At night, there should have been almost no movement there. I expected maybe a few triggers, rodent, bat, wind in grass. I opened the first clip. Frame showed my cabin window. Interior glow from the small nightlight I leave on. My body on the bed, sleeping. Second clip, same window, same bed. I am asleep. In the right side of frame, there is a silhouette. A person standing by the glass, looking in. I watched all 47 clips in one run. In 23 of them, the person was there. Motionless, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes 40. No attempt to enter. No overt movement. Just watching. In several clips, he stood close enough that I could see breath fog on the glass. A few clips showed pattern. He did not approach directly. He first appeared at the far tree line, paused as if checking interior activity, then moved in slowly. In one sequence, he left and returned later the same night. I cross-checked timestamps against sleep notes from my watch. Most approaches started after 1:30 a.m., right when I was usually in deep sleep. On the last clip, recorded the previous night while I slept 10 meters away, he did something new. He lifted one finger and tapped the glass once, quietly, like a test. I did not wake up. I replayed that tap several times, not because I needed proof, but because I needed to understand intention. He was close enough to wake me if he wanted. He chose not to. The tap felt like a boundary marker, like saying contact is possible anytime. Then I found another clip I had skipped, from camera 2 lower on the creek. At 1:37 a.m., the same silhouette crossed frame, carrying something long, maybe a stick or tripod. About 20 minutes later, he appeared at my window on camera 4. He knew my layout. I packed in 8 minutes. I did not even remove the cameras. I threw things into the vehicle and drove downhill. At the edge of the nearest town, I stopped at the sheriff's office and showed the files. He watched in silence and asked for the card. On the drive down, I checked my rearview mirror every few seconds, even though the road was empty. I kept thinking there was a shadow following the turns behind me. Deputies found many footprints around the cabin. Depth and spacing suggested repeated night movement on the same route. A near-perfect circle around the building, as if mapping perimeter behavior. Later, the sheriff said there were also smaller prints in some spots. Could have been older boot marks. Could have been noise in soft ground. He did not make claims. Neither will I. But it raised the same question. Was he alone? They also found a sitting spot on the opposite slope, compressed moss on a flat rock, cigarette butts, wrapper from an energy bar. From there, both porch and windows were visible. One deputy told me in a low voice that this was not the first report of a watcher near remote cabins that season, then immediately said the cases were probably unrelated and could not be discussed. Maybe he only wanted me to stay alert. Maybe he regretted saying it. But after that, the event stopped feeling isolated. I was not told who they looked for. The case moved to county level. I no longer do solo field stays. Every time a trail camera triggers at night, I need a few seconds before I can open the file. Because now I know observation is not always what you do. Sometimes it is what is done to you. And one final detail I told only the sheriff. On the day I left, in the cabin logbook where guests write departure time, there was already a line below mine. No name, just time. 2 o'clock, the same night as the tap on the glass. I asked the owner later if that line had already been there before my stay. He said no. He offered to check older logbooks. 2 days later, he sent me a photo from a previous season. Different page, different handwriting style, same pattern. One blank entry with only a time written beneath a guest departure line.